Hello everyone, and welcome into a special segment of Computer America. We're going to be covering the Reuters report for Amazon and their lobbying efforts to stifle any kind of restriction on themselves as a company. This is going to be a lengthy special report by Reuters. They did a lot of good research, and we're going to see if there's anything in here that we didn't already know, because it's very well known that the tech industry has massive lobbying capabilities. They, even more so than military contractors, it's ISPs and tech companies seem to be the ones who pour in the most money to influence that legislation. So everyone sit back, relax, we're gonna get through this, and this is quite lengthy. So we're starting with the obvious, that the reason this report came around, the reason that this report came around was that they had internal leaked documents that showed a lot of these victories that Amazon had scored on behalf of their lobbying efforts. We just got to the part where this is thanks to the leadership of Jay Carney, who was the previous communications director for Joe Biden. He was the press secretary for Barack Obama. You may have heard him before. Jay Carney seems to be very familiar with the habits of lobbying. So let's go ahead and get into this, and of course to our chatter, hello to Brazil as well. Everyone out there, sit back, relax. Here we go. Let's see, right here. Okay. Suffering. Sorry. Real quick, and question: I ended up suffering an offense and was threatened live. What doing? Threatened. Okay. Now we go ahead and continue here. The architect of the Jay Carney, we covered that. 2018 document reviewing executives' goals for the prior year listed privacy regulation as a primary target for Carney. One objective: change or block, and this is a quote, change or block U.S. and EU legislation that would impede growth for Alexa-powered devices. Wow. Just says it in black and white there, referring to obviously the digital assistant. The mission included defeating restrictions on artificial intelligence and biometric technologies, along with blocking efforts to make companies disclose the data that they keep on consumers. Let's see, we're going to go ahead and do that. Perfect. Okay, now, the documents listed Carney as the goal's primary owner and celebrated killing or amending privacy bills in over 20 states. There you go. Now, the story is based on a Reuters review of hundreds of internal Amazon documents and interviews with more than 70 lobbyists, advocates, and policymakers and their staffers involved in legislation Amazon targeted. So think about this. You have legislation that is strictly targeting companies like Amazon, if not Amazon itself, and this one gentleman's job and his entire department is to bend, change, or completely gut legislation that would do this. This is and like the sad part is, it doesn't take that much money to actually undercut or undermine these lobbying efforts. You know, tens of thousands of dollars. I'm sure that we can, and I'm sure that the report gets into this. How much money Amazon spent on lobbying? Let's see. Amazon has spent, well, okay, that's a lot of zeros here. In 2021 so far, let's see, so that's $15,330,000. That's in 2021 alone. So in 1 year, a little under 1 year, they've spent $15 million. I'm sure that will hit $16 million for sure. That seems like a lot of money, and for the amount of Congress people that I'm sure that they're paying, for the amount of state house or what have you in each individual state, it doesn't take much more than $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in a couple well-placed gifts to really bend these people to Amazon's will. And 16 million gets you a lot of it. And that's just Amazon alone. That's not, I'm not saying that anything here is out of the ordinary that a tech company doesn't do already. Now, this, with that being said, it is the third in a series of reports revealing how the company has persuaded business practices that harm small businesses or put its own interests above those of consumers. The previous articles show how Amazon has circumvented an e-commerce regulation meant to protect Indian retailers and how it copied products and rigged search results to promote its own brands over other vendors or, on its India platform. For those who don't remember that story, Amazon requires that for safety reasons, for its own reasons, that if you submit a product to be sold on Amazon, you have to submit a detailed schematic on how the product works. You have to submit the materials used to make the product, and you have to submit really everything about it that for quote-unquote safety reasons, if there's ever a recall, if there's ever a malfunction, they know exactly what to do and how to respond to it for the products that it's sold on its service. Now, Amazon has taken that data, because that data is just sitting there. You're not going to let it go to waste. They took that data and decided that, hey, this one is, only costs, this product, this umbrella, let's say, costs $4 to make, and they're selling it like gangbuster for $9. We can come in, make the exact same thing, or make something very similar, $4 to make, sell it for $7, undercut them, and label it Amazon's Choice or Amazon's own brand. Their market research for what would make a good profit margin and what they could undercut is already done for them by the exact people that they're undercutting. They're doing all the research for Amazon. That was proven that they did that, and hey, they got in trouble for that. Now, Amazon said, continuing on with the article here, that was number 2. I did not actually hear about the first one about circumventing e-commerce regulations, but now we're on part 3. In an August interview with Reuters, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy declined to comment on why the company has opposed major privacy protection bills, but said, "We have always been very passionate about the privacy of our customers." An Amazon webpage that explains Alexa calls privacy the technology's foundational principle. They're very passionate about privacy, maybe passionate about not allowing privacy, but yeah. Now, in a statement, Amazon said the premise of the story is flawed and includes reporting that relies on early, incomplete drafts of documents to draw incorrect conclusions. The company said that it protects consumers' privacy and doesn't sell their data, saying, quote, "We know we must get privacy right in order to meet our customers' high expectation." Now, when they say that they don't sell customer data, it's likely they don't sell it in the way that Google or Apple, or not even Apple, the way that Google and Facebook do, which is where they package it and serve you ads. Amazon's not really in the advertising business. They're in the selling you products or services that you probably want business. So while they're not selling it, they are definitely profiting from this. They're just not, they're just not sharing it with third-party companies, and the legislation that they target to gut, neuter, or otherwise destroy is meant to either hamper or completely restrict the amount of data that they're able to collect, and that's what they're targeting. They're not selling the data, but they are keeping it for themselves for very specific purposes. Now, Amazon said in the 2018 document listing Carney's goals to defeat privacy regulation is out of date, which, yeah, true, it's 3 years out of date, and does not reflect the company's current public policy objectives. The company said it has opposed poorly crafted state privacy bills. It said it would prefer a federal law that requires transparency about data practices, prohibits the sale of personal data without consent, and ensures that customers have the right to request access and delete their personal information. Now, when it says things like that, let's go over that again. It said it would prefer a federal law, so obviously on a federal level, that requires transparency about data practices, prohibits the sale of personal data without consent, so you can still sell it. You just have to read or, flash a pop-up saying, hey, read this 84-page document and click accept, and if you don't hit accept, you're not allowed to use our service. So yeah, everyone's going to hit accept, and ensures that that consumers have the right to request and delete their data and personal information. That last one is kind of moot. The European Union GDPR that was passed already requires that anyone who does business in the European Union has to have the ability to do exactly that. So even that is just kind of, it's already a non-issue. And it very much goes with kind of our current understanding that they want federal regulation. They want to abide by a certain amount of rules that everyone has to compete with. They really don't care if there's legislation that targets the whole industry, asterisk, but they care about things that would hamper them individually as opposed to their competitors. Now, I say asterisk because they're always there at the table, listening, watching, and making sure that they don't pass anything that they don't like. Facebook did the exact same thing when it came to social media. They were sitting at the table and Mark Zuckerberg said, I want regulation. I welcome regulation. Let regulation happen. But then when they propose bills, they're like, nah, that really doesn't work for Facebook. And then they have to go back to the drawing board. Happens all the time, and not just Amazon. Now, Amazon's lobbying against privacy protections aims to preserve the company's access to detailed consumer data that has fueled its explosive online retailing growth and provided an advantage in emerging technologies. The data that Amazon amasses includes the voice recordings from its digital assistants, which I have one sitting right here. I know exactly how convenient those things can be. Let's see, so the voice recordings, videos from home camera systems, we have some of those as well, so they get access to that. Personal health data from fitness trackers. There you go. And data on consumers' web searching and buying habits from its e-commerce business. So when you think about that, the access to the voice recordings makes it so that Amazon is one of the best when it comes to digital assistants, voice recognition, following commands. Really puts them at an advantage over things like Google. Google may have search habits and questions and knowing what answers are appropriate for the questions that are asked to it. But when it comes to voice, accents, that kind of thing, Amazon is hugely ahead of everyone else because of the access to those voice recordings. And yeah, it does provide them with actual tangible benefits, and they don't want to lose access to that. Even though that's your voice, that's your privacy at stake, Amazon makes money off of that. So there you go. And everything else, same thing with the video from the home camera systems. They're able to recognize people. Their person detection and their recording is highly sensitive and very, very accurate, more so than just random ADT home security system or what have you. Their competitors are not going to be able to keep up because they have access to so many customers, so on and so forth. You really see how just access to the information, even if they don't sell it, that puts them at that much more of an advantage over everyone else. So just want to make that clear. They are profiting from doing this, even though they're saying, oh no, we would never profit off your personal data, but they are, just in a roundabout way. Now, they said that under a 2018 California law that passed despite Amazon's opposition, consumers can access the personal data that technology companies keep on them. After losing the state battle, Amazon last year started allowing all U.S. consumers to access their data. How kind of them, saying that customers can request their data through this link. The link in the article will include this in the show notes. 7 Reuters reporters obtained and examined their own Amazon dossiers. If you've never done that for Facebook as well, Facebook does it. I think Instagram does it, who's of course a part of Meta. Apple, I think, does it. And Amazon, obviously, they're forced to do it. Check it out. They keep very detailed records. If you forget, Amazon does not. Check this out. One of the reporters found that Amazon had more than 90,000 recordings that their Alexa device had made of the reporter's family since 2017. In some, young children are heard asking questions about anatomy, including, Alexa, what is a vagina? There you go. It's clearly they're showing that they don't vet what personal data, because keeping data on kids is its own set of compliance that they have to do. But just by casting a net, they're recording all voices on these devices, and they say, if you're a user of this device, you have to be of a certain age. They keep those recordings of small kids, and that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to keep any data, anything, any recordings, any pictures, any biometrics on kids that are under the age of 13. But they're doing it not on purpose, but by refusing to omit. Another reporter found that Amazon had detailed accounts of her Kindle e-reader sessions and a customer profile which included her family's implicit dietary preferences. So they know even when you lay down to read every night, how long you read, what you read. Obviously, they know everything about Kindle e-reader and all that stuff. And obviously, metrics like that help them sell more books. Now, Alexa devices also pulled in data from iPhones and other non-Amazon gear, including one reporter's iPhone calendar entries with names of people he was scheduled to contact. Now, when it says that it collects all this stuff, you give them permission. That's how Amazon would kind of preface this whole thing, is that they would say, you gave our digital assistant access to all of that information to better integrate itself with your schedule. You gave access. Don't be surprised when we take that access and take that data. It needs that data to perform reminders, for instance, like with the iPhone calendar, to perform reminders. It needs that to do that. So they allow access, but as always, people are not aware of just how much access they are handing over. Now, most consumers don't understand how much personal information they cede to the technology firms, as we said, a privacy researcher at the Boston's Northeastern University, saying, quote, "When's the last time you let a stranger into your house and let them listen to your conversations, watch your TV, look at the comings and goings of your video cameras? The company is a stranger in your personal space, following you around. But of course, we all allow that access because it's convenient. It's oh so convenient, and who wouldn't want convenience?" Now, asked about the information at Harvest, Amazon said customers appreciate that it personalizes services for them, as I just said, such as shopping recommendations or music selections on smart speakers, based on the data we collect. Amazon said it wants one national privacy law rather than a patchwork of state regulations. As for details of any federal privacy legislation that it had supported, Amazon did not name a specific bill. As in, why would they want to restrict themselves? They would never. The company did provide 3 examples of what it described as statements of public support by its executives for federal consumer privacy legislation. Again, just like Facebook, we want legislation. We want restrictions. We want everyone to compete on a level playing field. But also, we want to set the terms. We want to set the boundaries. We want to set everything that they're going to restrict us with. That all sounds well and good, but they're going to oppose anything on the federal level. And when it comes to states like Delaware in particular has very, very lax tax and privacy laws and things like that. They're going to strongly oppose anywhere where they have a headquarters that those states implement strong restrictions. It's actually ironic that California, of all the different places, California is the one that has some of the strongest privacy-based consumer protections, because these companies cannot leave California, even though they often threaten to completely drop California because they protect people's privacy. But yeah, look at California if you want to see some of the most consumer-friendly privacy laws, and if you want to see some of the most spending when it comes to defeating these, Amazon, or I should say the tech industry again. Now, in those cases, Reuters found the executives were expressing either direct opposition to such a law and in opposition to existing state privacy protections or advocacy for industry-friendly measures opposed by consumer advocates. No major federal privacy legislation has passed Congress in years because members have been deadlocked on the issue. Remember, Amazon doesn't have to buy off all 100 senators to make sure nothing gets passed. They just have to buy off, a handful of Democrats, a handful of Republicans, and thanks to the current political climate, they're not going to jump ship and vote against party lines. And that's all it takes to deadlock what's been these privacy issues. So, with that being said, Carney and his deputies set the tone for more aggressive lobbying operation early in his tenure, drafting a strategy memo for new global corporate affairs department that combined public policy and public relations teams. The memo was written in 2015 with the help of communications executive Drew Herdener and public policy leader Brian Huseman. A draft version asserted that journalists and policymakers should respect Amazon as a force for good because it improves customers' lives and creates millions of jobs and broader economic prosperity. Again, might be a little dated, 2015, but boy, does that sound a little conceited. That was what was pushing them. Like, when they tell their deputies, when they tell their underlings, it may seem bad to say, people want to be able to access their data and delete it if they don't want the company to have it. Instead, they're brainwashed with this idea that Amazon creates millions of jobs, economic prosperity, everyone's better off for us having access to this. Fight. We need that data. Don't let them hamper us. And that was kind of the tone. As executives edited the draft, they summed up a central goal in a margin note saying, quote, "We want policymakers and press to fear us," he wrote. He described this desire as a mantra that had united department leaders in a Washington strategy session. And to be fair, I would say that if you oppose Amazon, you are more than likely going to lose your next political election. That seems to be the words here. Even if you don't take support from them, they are going to support your opposition in the coming years. In the final 4,200 word version, which Carney presented to Amazon's board of directors in 2015, vowed the department would ensure journalists and policymakers don't take for granted the good that Amazon does when they speak publicly about us and make decisions affecting our business or reputation. That sounds like that sounds like a threat. Very much so. But still, Carney told the directors of the companies that the company's success had made it a bigger and more frequent target for critics. According to his copy of presentation, calling Amazon's previous lobbying strategies frugal and narrow, Carney advised a more ambitious approach. So when he said that their success had made it a bigger and more frequent target for critics, yes, but rightly so. When you only do $10 billion in business, you're only affecting so many people. When you're doing $2 trillion in market capitalization, hundreds of billions of dollars in every year in revenue, like they said, you have millions and millions of people on your payroll. I mean, that's just more ground to cover. That's a bigger surface area to kind of target and pick apart the problems. And there are problems. That seems to be kind of the opposite of what he's kind of mentioning here, is that Amazon is mostly righteous, Amazon is mostly good, and anyone who critiques us is just putting everyone in danger. And that's not the way that you run it's just not the way that you run a company, that you vehemently oppose any kind of criticism towards your company. So among the first target was a Washington state bill to regulate biometrics, including voice recordings, fingerprints, and face scans. The State House Rep. Jeff Morris, chair of the Technology Committee, introduced a measure in January 2015 seeking to give consumers more control over such data. And I might need more coffee soon. That's hugely important because those are things that you need control over. Your voice recordings, your fingerprints, your face scans, these are things that you cannot change. Maybe plastic surgery if you want to actually destroy your face, but you can't change your voice, you can't change your fingerprints, you can't change your face. All of that stays with you forever and is permanently identifiable to an individual. You need supreme control over things you cannot change. Your browsing habits, your device that you're currently running, your location, even to a certain extent, you can change all those. You can't change your face. And Amazon made sure, saying that the bill eventually passed in 2017, but only after lobbyists for Amazon and other firms had chiseled away at its privacy protections by convincing lawmakers to insert alternative language, often verbatim, according to emails between lawmakers and Amazon lobbyists obtained by Reuters through public records request. There you go. When the law passed, Democratic state lawmakers touted it as the first of its kind in the country to to protect individual privacy rights associated with biometric identifiers. There you go. You can see how they, kind of changes the wording there a little bit. Let's see. And real quick, the problem is that they do not make enough money to pay dividends to shareholders. Yeah, Amazon's success, as they even point out themselves, they're one of the most successful companies. And I'm sure that they, among others, would say that more success just means better everything for everyone. But we've often seen that the money often gets siphoned off or put to other uses, such as, hey, a very fabulous space program that is, I'm sure, benefiting so many people with Blue Origin. And it's not just a dick measuring contest between Elon Musk and Bezos. But hey, any day now, a little bit more revenue, and they're going to, like you said, pay dividends or otherwise. Now, they said that Amazon's public policy team had a different take on the 2017 update, saying the team had negotiated favorable changes that meant that the law would have little, if any, direct impact on Amazon's practices. And let's face it, when they pass a law regulating face, fingerprint, and voice scans, and the company who is collecting face, fingerprint, and voice scans says, oh, that doesn't really affect us, how effective is that legislation really? And the answer is not much. So Amazon reps never took a public position on the bill, relying instead on trade groups and that the company funded to oppose it, that they oppose it at its hearings, according to Amazon documents and public records of the debate. That was part of a larger strategy, former staffer said, allowing Amazon to avoid public heat for opposing consumer protection measures. So it sounds like instead of Amazon slapping a big old Amazon logo saying, we, Amazon, oppose this legislation, they instead funneled money into multiple smaller groups. And they opposed it at the debates, they opposed it in, during public comment, and they never had to say that Amazon opposes this. They just paid 1,000 people to oppose it for them. And hey, no one was the wiser until we started looking at these internal documents that were found just a little while ago by Reuters. Again, if you're just tuning in, we are covering this amazingly long report, and we're going to have to speed this up a bit because I could spend hours talking about this. But yeah, it's Amazon and internal documents and how they have been opposing legislation that would hamper their business practices for the consumer benefit. But hey. Now, let's see. So they talk about more lobbying. They said in an email to Moore that the bill's definition of biometric identifier was overbroad and that consumer notifications and consent requirements would only confuse people. There you go. The emails show that they won an exemption for voice recordings, sparing the Amazon device from regulation. In 2016, they emailed again a Republican co-author seeking changes to the biometric data definition. A technology committee staffer confirmed in an email to the authors that the bill had been amended with the exact definition for biometric information provided by Amazon. That's a quote. That the staffer said the bill was updated with the exact definition for biometric information provided by Amazon. It's not even to the point where Amazon is affecting these negotiations or they are affecting this policy. They are writing this policy that is meant to regulate that industry. How effective can it really be? Now, in 2017, the two legislators widened the definition in a way that might apply to voice recordings. That drew a rebuke from Clausen, who said that we do not agree with this definition, and she sent him a bill saying that the definition was quote-unquote not acceptable. Amazon said, no, but it was kept. Amazon paid Dunlap's firm a $15,000 a month. Paid them $15,000 a month, a 2017 Amazon public policy planning documents show. The lawmakers again narrowed the definition and exempted voice recordings, the emails show. There you go. Clausen and Dunlap declined to comment. You can see that there. It's they broadened the term to, of course, shocking, I know, to think that biometric data includes voice recordings, which everyone thinks that it should. I don't think anyone thinks that your voice is not a biometric marker. And hey, $15,000 a month, a couple months later, the definition gets changed back. So, hey, money talks. They have since left the Washington legislature. Both of the legislators that they were talking about here both said that the economic impact of Amazon and the technology industry factored into their decisions. Morris and the authors sought a middle ground that protected consumers without harming companies, including Amazon, a major state employer. Both said Amazon did not have outsized influence. That might be true, but they're so big, what is outsized? I mean, if they control 90% of the public policy affecting them, that's not really outsized. They're huge. They're massive. They're a huge employer, employ, like they said, millions of people, and yeah, they're almost a backbone of the internet at this point. They're huge. Now, they're saying, quote, "It's not like Amazon is telling us what we're going to write this bill the way that they want it," end quote, Hemsworth said. Now, remember, think about that. It's not like Amazon is telling us that we're going to write this bill the way they want it. And then just before, there's a quote here saying that the exact definition for biometric information provided by Amazon has been included in the bill. So yeah, they're saying one thing and then doing another. Consumer advocates consider the resulting law essentially worthless, and a lawyer at the time for the American Civil Liberties Union of Washington said it's riddled with so many holes, it's like Swiss cheese. It falls in the category of bills that try to make you feel better about biometrics without providing meaningful protection. There you go. And hey, the ACLU, they certainly look at this thing often. Amazon said it opposed the original bill along with other companies because it hampered innovation. Quote, "We worked to educate lawmakers on the unintended consequences," the company said, end quote. The unintended consequences are, you hurt our data collection and we can't make as much money. That's unintended, right? Right. And here we go. They even have a couple of photos here. You can see if you're watching the video portion. These are, these people are actually, these are policymakers who are taking tours of Amazon factories, working the lines, and otherwise just doing photo ops with Amazon. And they include, let's see. So they said some of these are the Oklahoma governor, Kevin Stitt, Michigan Congressman Pete Maher, Nevada Congressman Stephen Horsford, Oklahoma Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Colorado Senator Cory Gardner, and Federal Communications Commissioner Brendan Carr. All these people have been seen in Amazon with their photo ops. So, let's see. The corporate affairs operation, rising influence on state legislation, owed both to the leadership of Carney and the growing resources at their disposal. This is the important part. Remember, we just looked this up. In 2021 alone, Amazon had spent $16 million on lobbying. And that's just what they publicly disclose. I'm sure that there's other ways around it that they do not disclose. But yeah, 16 million. That buys a lot of votes. They mentioned that by 2020, Amazon had registered at least 180 lobbyists in 44 U.S. states, up from 62 lobbyists in 27 states in 2014. And that was the year before Carney arrived. So they tripled their lobbying efforts and doubled the amount of states that they were operating in. Under Carney, Amazon waded deeper into consumer privacy policy battles as the company focused more on Alexa and other technologies that collect personal data. So they mentioned that Amazon relies on a vast database of consumer voice recordings for ongoing development of the technology. The device start recording when they say the wake-up word, and that signals the start of a command or question. Staffers sometimes review these recordings to assess and improve the technology. So for anyone out there who may be thinking about this, they don't listen to every individual recording. It is not a wiretap. You would have to be someone very special to receive that kind of treatment. They run them through an algorithm and they try to get accents correct. They try to get different room environment sounds correct, echoes and things like that. They run it through algorithms to make sure that their voice technology is the best voice technology out there. And they keep it all. They keep every little bit. And it is all accessible. I think that's the part where people might get a little freaked out. No one is actually going to be listening to these recordings, but they're all accessible at a certain point. And that's the scary part. They said that Amazon has fought bills that would require the company to notify customers that it keeps their recordings and secure their consents. The device default setting stores all voice recordings and transcripts. Amazon said users can opt out of having their recordings examined or adjusted, or adjust settings to prevent them from being stored. Now, there's always the 95-5 rule, which is when you opt in, 95% of people will not opt in and 5% of people will. And then it works the other way. When it's opt out, 95% of people will not opt out and 5% of people will opt out. People will not go out of their way to change that option. Whatever the default is, that is what the majority of people will do. And Amazon knows this. That's why this, which should be opt in, as in, obtain their consent, that's why it's opt out and not opt in. Placing voice assistants in homes, cars, and offices is central to Amazon's goal of becoming a ubiquitous service in consumers' lives, always ready to answer the questions or sell them, for instance, toilet paper or dish soap. Bezos has said Amazon has often sold Alexa devices at a discount, sometimes below Amazon's cost, underscoring the long-term play of voice technology that drives all products. That part is not unusual. That part's not unusual. Even Microsoft has admitted that they sold Xboxes, and I believe Sony does this as well. They sell Xboxes and PlayStations below the cost that it cost to make them, because they know that they're going to make it up in the long term of, either continuing subscription services, buying the games. They'll sell the point of entry at a loss and try to make it up in the back end. And it seems like Amazon is just participating in that as well. Real quick, it sounds like a great way to find closet racists and investigate them for breaking the law. Yeah, there was the subpoena for a murder suspect. I'm sorry, I can actually look this up now. Let's see, Amazon Alexa murder case. Yes, something like this. While it's not particularly about racism, to say that these devices are never going to be reviewed, that's not what I said. I said that they're going to be saved, and you would have to be someone very special to have your logs reviewed. That was the case in here, and I know that there was a case in Australia, but this one was in Florida, where Amazon's Alexa may have witnessed alleged Florida murder authorities say. And I know what you're thinking. Florida, murder, oh my God, that's never happened before. Well, it has. And they say that, this gentleman was charged with murder in connection to a July stabbing. And they said that they believe that his Echo, his Amazon Echo device, a smart speaker, may have witnessed to the crime and obtained such warrants for all the device's recordings. And they mentioned that they're in the process of analyzing the information that was sent to us. Essentially, Amazon sent all the recordings to law enforcement. They don't profit from it. They don't sell these recordings to other companies. They don't really listen to it themselves, but they have them, and they will send them through. Right now, don't get me wrong, a subpoena by a judge in Florida for a murder case is a pretty good reason to hand it over. But there may be other quote-unquote pretty good reasons in the coming future. Either just a point of a person of interest, or someone who maybe said something, a dissident, someone of the press. Yeah, stuff like that is going to happen more and more in the future. So a little detour, but yeah, they certainly keep those, and they are not shy about eventually using them. They mentioned that Amazon dominates U.S. smart speaker sales. 70% of smart speakers, about 64 million people, use an Amazon device. In May, Bezos told shareholders that Alexa had the potential to be a fourth pillar of Amazon's business besides the marketplace, the Prime Loyalty Club, and Amazon Web Services cloud computing unit. So you can see how much that they put faith in this. It's a lot. Amazon hired Carney as its emerging tech device business faced growth scrutiny over privacy concerns. The company found him in a 16-month search, said this gentleman, who was involved in the recruiting. Before his White House stint, Carney spent 2 decades as a Time magazine journalist, including posting in Washington and in Moscow, where he covered the Soviet Union's collapse. This guy is the best guy that you could possibly get for really persuading public opinion and persuading lobbyists. And by the way, the gentleman that you're seeing there, that is Mr. Jay Carney. He's amazing at what he does. It's not a bash on him. Everything that we have talked about so far is illegal, and I guess that's the part where people need to be a little concerned. It's not like Amazon is doing this and everyone should be concerned. It's that Amazon can do this and no one is concerned, and that's the concerning part, because it's all legal and this is really how the laws are meant to be. Sounds like for businesses it could be broken up. Yeah. Much to your point, E, I mean, Google became a subsidiary of Alphabet. Instead of being broken up, Alphabet claims that they don't have too much market share over so many different markets, because Alphabet is just the company that administrates their advertising arm, their search arm, their self-driving arm, their web services arm, their data storage arm. They claim that they don't have as much market share because they have multiple companies that cover multiple parts of the business, but they all work in cooperation with each other. And it's really not hard to see where Amazon could be split up, where Apple could be split up. I mean, the fact that Apple has its own smartphone, software, hardware, computer, like all that kind of thing, every one of those businesses should be probably split up. Amazon and these 4 businesses, and then probably more, should be split up as well. Tech companies are very, very inflated. And if the Bell company back in the 90s, or I should say the 80s, was split up, nowadays, man, we are long overdue for some real tech splitting up, because so much of the power has been put into one place. Now, they said that Jay is such a senior leader that he is capable of running both, he said in an interview, and adding that his skill set is hard to find, which I would definitely agree. This is probably the one person who could control something like this. Now, Amazon said in a statement that it needed to ramp up public policy efforts as it grew and diversified its business. The company hired Carney and expanded his department to educate lawmakers, regulators, and the public about Amazon in a more coordinated and focused way. As in, he's a propagandist, and he's a propagandist for Amazon. Amazon called the former employee description of Huseman management negative and untrue, and said that the company takes steps to ensure staffers can enjoy their time off. There you go. Yeah, and it talks about some of the how focused Carney was. They mentioned that the former FTC attorney who joined Amazon in 2012, Huseman, was an exacting manager. He wanted to know the whereabouts of all of his employees and regularly made them justify their above-market paychecks, 3 former staffers said. He was known for obsessing over the smallest grammatical and formatting details of 6-pagers and for expecting quick responses to late-night work messages. There you go. Clearly, Amazon was running their lobbying arm just as accurately as any Amazon warehouse worker. Yeah, and they were talking about data-driven management, as in if you don't meet these numbers, if you don't hit this quota, then you could do better, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Let's go and skip around here a little bit. Amazon categorized officials by their strategic importance, and yeah, should be targeted for meetings, Amazon site visits, or campaign donations at least annually. So Amazon had their own kind of VIP list in Congress on who they need to meet with. And their highest tier included leaders in Congress and in legislatures of 2 key states, California and Washington, 2 of the most technology-savvy states out there. Let's see. So moving on here a bit. They said that Amazon Public Policy Manager Lisa Cohn informed Illinois officials in August 2017 that the perils of regulating job-creating tech companies, and essentially sent them a threatening email that, hey, don't hamper our business. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, and they would visit states and say, hey, you want to legislate us, and be careful with that. If I recall about Illinois, they had some big bills come up back in 2017 that would really legislate Amazon, and they said that the veto came days after Amazon announced it would create tens of thousands of jobs at a second North American headquarters, setting off a competition among cities to offer lavish tax breaks. I remember covering that, and the tax breaks were so massive, it would take 20 plus years to recover any kind of revenue from those tax breaks that they were kind of throwing out there. And even beyond that, they were just making themselves look like idiots. Entire cities were renaming themselves Amazon, trying to get that business, which I kind of get it. If a company says that we can come in and generate 10,000 jobs immediately, and you are going to be a tech hub in the entire country, yeah, states are going to do stupid things. And I guess in some cases, the economic development would be, it's one thing to have $20 billion. It's another thing to have $20 billion come out to something meaningful, and Amazon can do that for you. You give them $20 billion in tax cuts or tax incentives, and they can give you a really good return on that investment. Not many other companies were doing that, and you can't really, it's hard to turn that down, even if it meant, a huge hurt to your, or a huge hit to your revenue. Amazon's public policy team claimed credit for killing the measure in an internal January 2018 public policy update, saying, quote, "In Illinois, we defeated a problematic geolocation bill by obtaining a veto from the governor." They're not shy in saying that, hey, we affect public policy. We affect all of this. There you go. So in a statement, Amazon acknowledged that its representatives regularly remind politicians of the many Amazon workers in their districts, but said that the company would never use job creation as legislative leverage. That's just plainly not true. That is, even here up on the screen, we have a tweet from the governor, Ronner, saying he toured the Amazon's new Romeoville facility today. Their success represents what is possible if we make real changes to attract employers. Reading between the lines, if we make real changes to attract employers, if we do what Amazon says, they'll create jobs. That's what it says, and saying that and then Amazon says that we have never used our workforce as leverage in these discussions. When, hey, that's from the governor himself. Let's see, we saw what happened in the steel business. We went from millions of high-paid jobs to less than 100,000. And yeah, it's I'm not the most up to date with the whole manufacturing, factory jobs, NAFTA, outsourcing to China, that whole thing. But yeah, it's industries can definitely ebb and flow, and when it comes to tech jobs in particular, let's face it, the internet has made it so that Illinois needs to compete with Florida, and Florida needs to compete with Texas, and Texas needs to compete with California and Colorado, and every single state needs to be competitive because it's not just about access to workers or industry or anything like that. These businesses can be anywhere, and and Amazon knows that. They know that they can throw up a data server in North Carolina, and they can throw up a kind of an administrative building in New York. They can do this job from anywhere, and they can make that their benefit by saying that all of you need to compete for my favor, which is proof here that they do all the time. Now, they said that the Amazon team's tactics haven't always succeeded. Amazon tried to derail the 2018 California bill to allow consumers to request personal data companies to request the data that companies keep on them. The policy said that it was essentially the right to know. Anyone who uses a company has the right to know what data that company keeps on them. And they said that in the 2018 public policy update, they said, the quote, "We strongly prefer no regulation, but if regulation becomes inevitable, we will seek to amend the language to narrow any new requirements to the greatest extent possible." There you go. And of course they can do it from India. I'm sure that you didn't hear at the very beginning of this whole thing. Yeah, they have, Reuters have reported on what they're doing in India, and it is a shade even more oppressive than what they're doing here in the United States. India is going to have to deal with a lot of this on their own because, man, as much as 16 million gets you in the United States and its policymakers and how much influence it has on public policy, I'm sure that an equal amount, $16-20 million in India gets you even more influence to a population that is 3 times the size of America. India is going to have a lot of tech companies coming in and be very predatory towards its people. But its people are also very impoverished and need a lot of development and investment. So India is a whole different problem. But yeah, India is certainly a source of manufacturing that will be imported into America. But still. Okay, so continuing on here, a different setback came last month in the U.S. Senate. Senator Chuck Grassley, an Iowa Republican and the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, was among a top-tier VIP to Amazon, and that was according to the 2014 Watering the Flowers documents. Grassley co-authored a bill with Amy Klobuchar that would prohibit companies, including Amazon, from favoring their own products on their e-commerce platform. Told by Reuters that Amazon had prioritized him for lobbying, Grassley pointed to the new bill and said any efforts to influence him haven't worked. He's saying, quote, "I can't imagine they're too thrilled with that bill, but it's good policy." And Amazon did not comment on Grassley's remarks or his bill. I'm sure behind the scenes they are fuming that Grassley is, doing this. Now, okay, so we're going to speed this up a little bit more. Definitely good reporting, and it really highlights how Amazon is not afraid to target individual congressmen and congresswomen to really put pressure to change legislation that they don't like. So still, as Carney's operations grew, it racked up major victories. In California, the e-commerce giant has undermined 3 efforts to require companies to notify consumers or get their permission before storing or sharing their voice recordings. Amazon's latest effort to stop regulation of voice recording focused on a bill from a Republican assemblyman. The lawmaker worried that Amazon staffers were listening to some Alexa recordings made in people's homes. The company says employees only review a tiny fraction of the recordings. That's because, recall, the reporters for Reuters asked for their own recordings. One person in their family had 90,000 recordings since 2017. They have 64 million voice assistants in the United States. Let's say, 1 to 2, 30 million homes have an Alexa device. Let's just throw that number out there. Multiply that by, let's round it up to 100,000. 3 billion voice recordings are, floating around out there. Of course, they're only listening to a small number of them. No company, unless you hire, 30 million people to listen to 3 billion voice recordings, or 30 billion voice recordings, whatever it was, unless you hire that many people, they're only going to listen to a small amount, but they can target exactly who and where and why they're listening to these people. And that is something that is concerning. But no one can pass legislation to really get a handle on it. So let's see, the article talks about more about that particular one. Amazon paid Rue Global $30,000 to influence legislative or administrative action in California, according to state lobbying records. Puff is, and that's someone who's here. Puff is Rue Global's chief sustainability officer. Contacted by Reuters in June, Puff said that he had never worked with Amazon. Rue Global CEO Deborah Rue, in a June interview, denied coordinating with or receiving money from Amazon. So essentially, I don't think that they're really telling a lie here when they said that they've never worked with Amazon. I think that Amazon is able to kind of hide money and influence people, and even they don't even know that they're really being affected by Amazon. They throw money out to everyone, and like they said, kind of watering the flowers. It's really just that easy. As easy as it is for you as an individual to go water your garden, it's as easy for Amazon to throw out $10, $20, $30, $50,000 to different policy makers. And yes, I'm sure that they're listening to a lot of legislators' voice recordings. Hey, random doesn't always mean random, I guess. Puff did not respond to additional requests for comment. Deborah Rue said last month that her group had concerns with Cunningham's bill. Long before working with Amazon, she apologized for her earlier incorrect statement and that she had never worked with Amazon, saying she was caught off guard by the question. She declined further comment on her work with the company. Probably for the best to not say anything. Amazon said Rue Global was already opposed to Cunningham's smart speaker bill by the time Amazon partnered with the firm. Amazon said the bill's consumer consent requirement could negatively affect the accessibility of these devices for all customers, including those with disabilities. How in the world would requiring consent from users affect people with disabilities and their ability to use these devices? I mean, it's not hard to require that, but it does kind of tarnish the image of Amazon and their digital assistant. And mine too. Oh, trust me, mine is, I wish they listened to mine more. My digital assistant is really horrible at turning on and off my lights, which is like really the only thing I use it for. And they still can't even get that right. And that's a whole different aside. Their smart speakers should be better, but yeah, they're still kind of crap. And so regardless. Cunningham dismissed Puff's argument, saying that Amazon wanted to sandbag the legislation with an emotional story, which is essentially those with disabilities would not be able to use our products. Why would Amazon throw an organization $30 million a month to oppose legislation that, as they said, they already opposed? Like, oh, good stuff. Here you go. Here, have some free money. No, they did it to beef up their actions, be even more outspoken, and oppose this even more vehemently. Even though they might have been opposed before, just kind of wishy-washy, they were super opposed afterwards. Now, Cunningham's bill passed the Assembly 63-0 in May and went to the Senate Judiciary Committee. It would go no further. Amazon's Williams had lobbied committee chair Tom Umberg. According to a person familiar with their discussion, Amazon donated $9,200 to Umberg's election campaign since he took office in 2018. There you go. This week, before a committee on the bill, Cunningham said Umberg called him to suggest he withdraw it until 2022 because of opposition from tech firms. Umberg said he shared Cunningham's concerns about voice data privacy and that political donations have no bearing on decisions about legislation. Amazon said, "Of course, we do not tie contributions to votes." Same thing happens in the review industry. If something is received for free, the reviews are going to be more lenient and they're going to be better, even though the person reviewing it is saying, I got this for free, but this is my honest review. It's human nature. Little invested, they got it for free, they are grateful, and those kind of positive emotional responses are going to carry over into the critical review of the product. And some people do it better than others, but by and large, that is the trend. Donations equals influence. And that's just the way politics is here in America. So they go into this whole thing about Virginia, and if I recall correctly, this has to do with their big new building that they were supposed to hire like 10 or 100,000 people into like a mega warehouse. Here it is. The company said it plans to invest $2.5 billion and more than 25,000 jobs in Virginia. That was kind of the carrot and the stick. And Virginia really bent over backwards to make sure that that they would come to the area. So, with that being said, yep, we're not going to get into the whole Virginia thing. This whole segment went a little long, longer than I thought it would. We'll end it here, saying that Amazon said that the outreach was an administrative follow-up because there has been some instances of Virginia lawmakers not cashing donation checks for months. In a public hearing on the bill, they tried to raise concerns but was cut off by the committee chair who sponsored the legislation. A video of the session shows Amazon, Samira said, had successfully preempted safeguards for Virginians. Data is everything for tech giants, Samira said. The Virginia law, he said, was Amazon's attempt at controlling the problem before it gets out of their hand, and they did it very effectively. Where essentially, Amazon invested a couple $1 billion and did stuff that they were going to do anyways, but they leveraged that to compromise legislation that Virginia was going to pass. There you go. And even shut down lawmakers who did not accept their donations. Now, the article goes into here about the reported data request. The data that Amazon keeps on people's families and stuff. I think we're going to end that there. So, everyone out there who listened for the past hour, thank you so much. I have to take a quick break real quick, about 5 minutes. But if you listen to this, thank you so much. And I'm going to be referring to this. This was a really good eye-opener into how persuasive Amazon can be when it comes to their legislative efforts. so often you hear that, we need the government to do this, we need the federal government to impose regulations, we need the federal government to do this, that, or the other. None of our legislators are opposed to the voice of money, to campaign contributions, and more. So it happens all the time. It's only going to get worse because at this point they know it is working. They have spent tens of millions of dollars, and man, their stock price has only gone up and up and up. No really good legislation has really been passed in the past 5 or 6 years because of the efforts, not just by Amazon. And that's something else I want to reiterate again. Amazon is not the only one that does this. We are up against Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, or I should say Meta at this point. We're up against a lot of these major companies to pass real, meaningful data privacy legislation. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets through and there is actual change. Once again, look at what's happening with the EU and the GDPR. It makes a difference, and they're still beholden to the people, but man, Amazon and the tech companies are speaking louder than ever with bigger and bigger contributions. So we're going to end that there. Thank you so much for listening to that. And that's a special segment about the Reuters reporting on the Amazon and the privacy lobbying that they do.